Hi, my name is Corey Olson. I'm owner and CEO of Infusion Solutions. And today we're going to give you a sneak peek on our new wine and spirits solution built on Business Central. We've been in the Microsoft channel for over 20 years. We're located in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we specialize in creative solutions throughout the whole Microsoft stack. We specialize in distribution, not-for-profit, higher education, and healthcare, but we have a tailored solution for wine and spirits wholesalers. Up to now, that's been built on Microsoft Dynamics GP. We work with over 20 wine and spirits distributors across the U.S., and we offer consulting services on business processes, integration services, Power Platform development, and of course support both Microsoft Dynamics GP and now Business Central. Today, I'm really excited to show you some sneak peeks in this new solution we built that leverages the best of Business Central, 365 Wine Trade, and some custom solutions we have added for integrations, reporting, and other things that meet the needs of our wine and spirits wholesalers. I'm really excited to show you this new feature today. I hope you enjoy it. What we're going to go over today, we're going to cover what we call the end of night process. So what do we consider end of night? That's when the orders are done and cut off. Now, some distributors do that all at once. Everything cuts off at 5:30 or 5 or 6 or 4, depending on how your organization runs or which day of the week it is. Others do it in waves. So you might cut off early routes. You might cut off some things in different waves. So it's not just one final cutoff, but it's the point when orders are done and they turned over to the warehouse. In our current Infusion GP solution, this involves 2 or 3 different workbooks, depending on your processes as a distributor, and a lot of quick steps from the home screen. I'm really excited about how we've reapproached this process and have revisioned this in a much more streamlined fashion. So I'm really excited to show you that. We still have some bits and pieces we're working on. As most of you have heard me say before, our development strategy was functionality for first quarter of this year. Our next goal in second quarter is reports and integration. So you'll see some things where I'll say, hey, this is a report we still have to do. And that's still on our timeline schedule. So what I'm going to show you through today is through that end of night process. What I'm not going to show you today is how the orders come into the system or credit checks. Those are going to be 2 different ones. You'll see those webinars. You'll get more information about how do we get the orders in the system and how do the orders look in the system. And then how do we do credit checks or holds or reviews. Those will all be on separate meetings for that. I will point out again some places where our reports will be, and those are coming, and we'll circle back around for more of the reporting aspect related to this process. So I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to stop my camera just so sometimes that helps on not locking up in Teams. So as I look inside of Business Central, I'm going to go first to my sales order list. Now, this is the area, kind of like your smart list in GP right now, where all of the orders are coming in the system and doing their thing. Unlike in GP, orders will stay orders. We're not going to transfer them immediately to invoices if their shipment date is tomorrow. Instead, they hang out here. There's a release process that'll send through credit checks. Again, we'll deal with that in a separate webinar into that process. We also have our hope is that if you have a third-party routing system, we're moving those to API. For some of you, we've already done that. For others of you that might do flat file exchanges, the goal is as you switch over to Business Central, we'll be moving your third-party routing, whether you do RoadNet or some other kind of service, through an API. What that means is they're based on criteria is what gets sent over to them. It's not really a user isn't involved in making it go over to the routing system. And so those will send over to the routing system. Once your router sends it back, then it will be routed into the system. So it's a lot less interaction, no workbook needed in order to facilitate that back and forth. It's all done electronically based on the triggers of when we key off that an order is ready. In this case, an order is typically ready when it's been released and approved. So it's went through any kind of credit checks, it's validated that it's ready, and that order is ready to go as far as the system is related. And again, based on whenever you decide to do that in the routing system, is that. Some of you guys are manual routers. You don't do a third-party routing system. So again, not really necessary for you. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more. So on here, I can see in my sales order, I've filtered to a certain ship date. I'm in my user work date is as of 1/8. So I'm kind of working in the past here. So everything that has come in is for tomorrow. I have a lot of orders you can see into my different routes. This route has come from my default at my customer card. So I have a default route and stop. The great thing about what we've done there is we've allowed for a different route and stop per day. So I'll show you that here in just a minute. As my routes come in, again, whether it's to the default route or because I have an API going and the router is working, I can look at that here. I can filter down to a route. I can also use my Analyze tab, which is all over inside of Business Central. By flipping over to the Analyze tab, I've built a pivot table. Instead of taking it to Excel and doing that outside the system, I've built a pivot table. It's going to filter automatically on whatever I've filtered on the front screen. And I can see what's been routed and what hasn't been routed. I can see each of my route numbers and what's the number of invoices, amounts that are gathering. And I can even see all the customers under there and see all their invoices. So again, this is more customer service view. I'm going to show you where the routers are actually going to go. We have a better window, but this is really great organization for us to be able to see like you would have done in SmartList before, but better because we are able to do that instead of taking it to Excel. To do pivot tables, we can do it right here. And again, I named this, so when I go back to it, I don't have to redo this every time. So again, whatever I filter to up here, that's what it's going to show over there into our part. So let's just look at a sales order here. So I'm just going to click into a sales order, and I want to show you some fields we've added for the routing process. So in our customer here, we have added the route code. We've added a stop. And again, that's coming from the default of the customer card or going back and forth from your routing system. We've added a flag here that's flagged it as routed. So again, if you are a person who manually routes and you don't send it to a third party, all of your orders when they come in get the default, and then it might be already flagged as routed. Otherwise, this toggle will be flipped by your the API to your third-party routing system when they finalize what the route and stop are. You guys will be familiar with invoice breaks. We still have our invoice breaks from our customers. We've added that so things won't consolidate together, whether that be wine and spirits need to be separate or whatever else might be criteria for you to separate invoices. So let's look a little at the customer card. And I can just go drill into this customer by going to show details. And I'll open this customer here. There's a few things we've added at the customer card. I'm going to go down to our shipping area. So under our shipping consolidations, we've added a box to say, do not consolidate this customer. So we have that in our solution now where you can choose that a customer wouldn't consolidate invoices together. So if a customer, every time they enter an order, you want that as a separate invoice, you can choose this box here. In addition, you have all those same invoice breaks where you can have your different categories of products. We're using the tax category. Some of you use tax category. Some of you used item class category. We've narrowed that down to the most detailed, which is tax category. And then you can choose to put those on the same invoices or separate invoices together. And then if there's any different payment terms, like for beer, non-out, etc., and tax schedule will be coming onto here as well. In our shipping routing area, we get to pick the default delivery dates based on customers, based off of the base calendar. So these will be preset for you as you do your deliveries, but you can have Tuesday, Thursday calendar, Wednesday, Friday, every day of the week calendar. What's nice about these calendars is they all base off of a consistent ship calendar in the system. Why is that important? Well, holiday routing, right? So maybe you want to move everybody that's on a Tuesday, Thursday route and choose these different types of delivery days. And you can do that on these calendars without having to mass update or do that confusing kind of holiday override. So your calendars will be able to drive that. All of that is based off of your company's shipping calendar. The shipping calendar is where we can define working and non-working days. So we'll get into the shipping worksheet of how does it know what tomorrow is. It's all driven by calendars, one base shipping calendar, to know if your next delivery, your next calendar date is a working delivery date or not. And that's how the system will be able to keep up. So if holidays, or if you have a crazy snow day, or something else, you can adjust that into that calendar. And then also to a customer who we know now what their next delivery date is going to be, and we pass that to Inventive, we're able to identify that based on those calendars that we've done. So now we know what's our next delivery days here. So I know I'm on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, whatever it might be. We've also kept our options here of every other week. So we have some distributors that only deliver every other week. We pass that to Inventive to get that delivery date to default correctly for the sales order. And then you can choose whether they're even week or odd week. So odd week is not flipped, even week is toggled. On here, we've added the ability, which I know some of you are going to be really happy about. We used to get one default route. Now we've added a default route and stop for every single day of the week. So if there's a different delivery route that this person was on, many of you struggled maybe to get your routes to a default route, and you wanted to have a Monday route, a Tuesday route, a Wednesday route, a Thursday route, etc. Now you can go back to that process, and we can order those stops accordingly. There. So really neat things that I think you'll like that we added here. Small features, but make a big difference. So this is where we're gathering that default route and stop as we put it on the orders as orders come into the system. And of course, the delivery day is defaulting from Pocket Advantage, which it does now, from the delivery days that we pass them. Once we have our orders into the system and they're starting to gather, they're being released immediately. They'll go through credit checks. Again, we'll go through that in a separate meeting. And once they're approved, then they're really ready to be trigger to your routing system. Once your router routes them, they'll come back, or it's ready for your review manually. So I'm going to go into my 365 Wine Trade menu and go to shipping and shipping worksheets. Now, I've also bookmarked this onto my homepage, so you don't have to go through the menu. You can go straight there. The shipping worksheet is going to automatically open one day more than whatever my work date is. So if I'm looking at this for my work date was 1/8, so it automatically defaulted to 1/9. In here, on this lookup, I can see all of the routes and how they're loading up. You can take this view to Excel as well. Now, you'll notice mine have a lot of the same cases, weights, and values because I have the same orders loaded into multiple routes. We've duplicated all of these routes to get to a volume for our volume testing. So mine is a little crazy in there. You can also see, I can clearly see anything that's not routed. So anything with a blank route is showing here, and I can select that and review all of those as well. So all of these have not been routed yet into this part. So you can see that. I can unselect or select all. So here I can see every single route that I have, how the total cases, bottles, gross weight, if you've loaded that. We typically load net weight, but you can kind of see how that's queuing up into the system. Now, you can sort by any of these columns. So if I wanted to pick maybe I wanted to start it routing with just my lowest number of cases, or I have a certain one, you of course can do that. I can load this for every route that I have going for tonight, for tomorrow. Or I can pick one specific route, or a group of routes. And I'll talk why would you want to do one versus the other, in just a few minutes. That'll come a little more clear. If I pick a group or just one route, whatever I pick in this, selection, the total of all of those routes will show here. So over to the right here, now that I've picked my route and my date, it's going to show me the combination of those routes into what the total cases, units, or weight is. Now I want to talk just a little bit about the layout of this screen before we dive into some of the actions and setup that drove what we're seeing in this screen. So the first thing I'm seeing here is this is every order that is scheduled to that route in stop order. And you can sort this differently as well. All of these columns are sortable. But within here, I can see all of my different stops, what invoices, if I click on any of those down here at the bottom, I'm going to be able to see every single line item that is on that order. And again, we thought about the router, so we're really focused more. We do have amounts. These can be personalized. Anything in Business Central can be personalized. So again, if I go to my settings and personalize, you probably have saw me do this before if you've attended any of our Business Central. If I'm here and say, I want to move the city, the cell to city, because I know that's really important, and I want to see that a little closer, I can move that column. It will stay there for my user. Maybe I don't care about PO number, which is what external document number is. So I'm going to hide that. So again, you can move these columns around. Same with here. If nobody cares about dollar amounts, you can hide that. And then later, if you decide, hey, I really do want that field, you can just go to your plus button here, and anything you've hidden will be here to the side as well. So all of that information is there. Once you've done that for your user, this sticks. If you do have security, you can do that for a role and do everyone within a certain role. With a little bit of code, we can also do it across your whole organization, across multiple roles. So as I kind of look at this, everything that I'm going to talk about in actions apply to everything that I've selected in this window. So if I have a group of 3 routes, if I only want to pick one and finish out one route, if I want to do the whole night at one time, whatever I've selected in this route filter, all of the actions I'm going to go over today apply only to what you've selected here, except this finalized routing. Finalized routing is just like you would have done in our workbook outside of the system, whether you're, most of you do a third-party router, but even if you don't do a third-party router, if you want to move anything you chose not to route today to the next day, or if you want to move anything that you left on hold to the next delivery day, what will happen is you can hit this finalize routing. And let's go ahead and peek before I go through these actions to how we set that up to define what we see in here, as well as what actions are going to happen into the system. So to do that, I'm just going to search my shipping setup, and I can get there through my menu as well. So in my shipping setup, we've done a few really cool things that right now are behind the scenes that you can't see. Now you can see what options are there, and you have options to change those and impact your system. Of course, with security to this window, so don't panic. So in here, we have the ability to mark all orders as routed when they come in from order import. So if you're not using a third-party routing system, you're only using the default, you have no reason to flag or mark those. And I'll show you some actions we have if you left this unmarked. You could flag this. The other option we have here is mark all orders as picked. So at each line item, if you have a WMS system, the WMS system, you would click this not to have orders marked as picked. And then the WMS system is going to flag those as picked as the WMS processes those orders. So that's how you'll know what's picked or not picked. And I'll show you how you can flag that as well. If you don't have a WMS system, but you still want to do early picking, this is another flag that you can use. You'd have your orders not come in as marked picked, and then you have the ability to flag them picked as you print pick tickets. So you only then can print pick tickets for the things you haven't yet print pick tickets for. So again, depending how you want to work your system, you have these options, and maybe something will change it and your order import will read off of here based on your organization versus us hard coding stuff like we do now. In the shipping worksheet side of the world, this filter group tells us what do you want to see in the shipping worksheet. So I told you I'm only going to see orders that have been released and from Business Central. That's the canned process of committing inventory. But then it also has the credit approval. So on our credit approval side, I don't want to see it if it's held up in credit approval in my shipping worksheet. The way that is defined is not hard-coded. It's done by this filter group. So if I go in here and show details, what I've told the system is that I only want to see orders or pickups, and we'll talk about that later. That's still in progress. For those that are the status of released, and it's only released when it's been approved through the credit review status. And I'm only really caring about things that are 1 day more, and that's why the date on the shipping worksheet defaulted to 1 day ahead of my work date. Again, you do have the ability to grab whatever date you want in there, but that's what it will default to. In here, I've also defined what do I want to consolidate together. Again, we'll set this up for you at the beginning as we talk through your processes for your individual organization. But as you can also anytime see, what am I consolidating together? If any of the fields that I've listed here are different for the orders, they won't consolidate together. Obviously, customer, bill to customer, those are all kind of common stuff. The shipment date, we don't want to combine multiple shipment dates together. Obviously, anything with a different payment term, whether it has a different PO number, those need to be kept on separate one. Route, stop, invoice break number. It's all your kind of common stuff that we would separate out and not combine together. The next thing is really cool, and this is really exciting, is you can change the name and the actions that the button in the shipping worksheet do. So if your organization, I'm going to create those invoices, consolidate, post them, and print them. You can do that all in one button, and I can just have the button read that. And then by the button reading that, it knows all of the different steps to do. In this step, if I chose the button to be this one, all it's going to do is consolidate, create invoices, and print them for me, but it's not going to post them. Now we're going to talk about why would you want to hold it up in posting or why wouldn't you? Again, our preferred method when you see this and hear the time trials that I've done, I think most everybody will do this as a create, invoice, post, and print right away. This is kind of fun. I think if something has not been picked completely, so again, I'm going to go back to the WMS, but I'm also going to say early routing. So if you printed pick tickets for a route and then 2 more orders come in, when those orders come in and you haven't flagged them picked, so that means you aren't marking all your orders as picked when they come in automatically, then it will show as red and italicized. You can choose a variety of different options here, but red and italicized, which will bring my attention that I need to do something with that. And then I'll show you the action to flag that inside the shipping worksheet. If there's an error when I try to print the invoice or consolidate, it's going to give me this bold red italic. So I know there's something wrong, and an error message has a column to show me that. This last section of our setup is how it's going to know when I hit the finalize routing button, what does it know it's going to do? And again, this is something we have hard coded now in the back end of the system. Now we have the ability for you to see it and for you to be able to affect change. So I have two different types of orders that it's going to move ahead a day. It's looking for orders that are going with a delivery day of one more day, but it's going to use a date calculation of a day more than that. So on here, my not routed orders, I'm going to go into here and I can see what I've selected is that the routed toggle is no. So again, this could be because your third-party router never sent it back, so we never toggled that as routed. Remember, those are going to show up in that blank route into my shipping worksheet. And so those, just like you would see on Docs on Load, those are going to move over to the next day. In this process, orders on hold, what I've selected into this is anything that is still a review status, which means it's still in credit checks, of pending. So it wasn't approved. The delivery date was for tomorrow, and it's going to be moved over. So all of that setup is what's driving the buttons and the actions of what I see in that shipping worksheet. So I'm just going to go back here to my shipping worksheet. Now, as a positive, what I can also do is pop this out into a new window. I'm not going to do that right now because we're only sharing one screen. But you can keep this window up all through the night. If I close it, it is going to reload it just to whatever tomorrow is. So again, if you went past midnight, it'll default to that. You can always change your worksheet back a date in order to do that. The finalize routing, of course, is your first step. So this is typically done, obviously, before midnight. You're doing that after you complete the final round of routing. So if you're thinking in our current process, it's your last and final route, and you hit the button for that. So as you finish routing, you're going to do this finalize route. That's when it'll move all of those orders. So then once I've done that, I shouldn't see a blank route on here for tomorrow. That will be moved forward into tomorrow's delivery. And then anything on my sales order list, again, that was marked into pending because it's still in review status, that moves forward to tomorrow. So that's what this button does. It doesn't matter if you have all your routes selected, one route selected. Again, it's reading off that filter criteria at the shipping setup and has nothing to do with that. Everything else I'm going to show you has everything to do with what you've selected here. How we envision this being used is you are going to load your orders in for the night. You've routed them. You're reviewing them as your router finishes to make sure, again, if you have a third-party routing system, you're going to make sure that your cases and weights and your routes match up to the load manifest from that third-party routing system, just like you would have done on load summary. You'll do that through this window and make sure it looks right. So your first step, validate your routing. Once it's been marked routed, it's no different than what happens now. If you have a WMS, that triggers over to your WMS through an API is the difference. But most of you have direct integrations anyway. And if you're not a third-party router and you have pick tickets, now you're ready to print your pick tickets. From here, your button to print your pick tickets will be off of this window. That, again, is not yet ready. So that's in our reports, and we'll circle back to that. You'll have the ability to print everything again, just not things that are flag picked. So in here, I have this red italicized, and you can see that this one came in maybe after I ran my pick tickets. So maybe all of this was not flagged as picked. I printed my pick tickets. We'll have a toggle on the pick tickets. It'll pick up whatever you have in your route filter here. And then we'll have a toggle to say pick only things that are not picked, or print everything. So in this case, maybe I've already printed my pick tickets. I flagged them. Now I see one more come in. I can just print my pick tickets just for that order. So again, you'll have that ability into this process, just like we do now if some of you do our early picking process. From here, if I want to flag that, I do have the ability to go ahead and set everything in here as a picking status of complete. So I can do that. And then that's going to go through this, everything in this window, and make sure to flag them all. And you can see now that it's not red anymore. I can also do the opposite, unflag everything as picked. Some of you, that's going to be really helpful. Again, if you mess up on your pick tickets and if you are doing early picking, you do have that ability. You can also here set everything as routed or cleared. So maybe don't have a third party, but you don't want it to trigger to your WMS until you've reviewed the routes. If you're a manual router and you have a WMS, you can do that here. So what you can do is review your routes, and when you're done, you'd have your orders come in not routed. When you're done reviewing your routes, you can then set them as routed, and that's what triggers over to the WMS. Again, you can also clear that. So if you need to reload your WMS, you can do that as well. So all of that information, those flags can be driven on action straight from here, and you can control that without us needing to go remote in and do a SQL statement for you. Now, every other action I'm going to talk about is here individually, but we don't really anticipate you doing these in individual steps like you would in our solution now. Instead, what we would anticipate is after you've picked and loaded, whether you do one route at a time or whether you do 3 trucks or 5 trucks at once, when you've loaded those trucks, you printed your pick tickets for everything you need. Again, that could be all routes for the whole night. Or if you're doing early and waves, whatever fits your model. Once you've done that, then what can happen is once you've loaded those trucks, we would anticipate you to pick that grouping of routes. So I'm just going to stay on my one route here. And then you would just hit this button. Now, one other step I forgot to mention that we're still working on is the pick shorts. So again, if you have a WMS, your WMS is going to send that back with any kind of pick shorts and adjustments for a clean invoice. If you are a clean invoice house, so you wait until all those picks are done and you want to manually adjust it, we will have a button off of here that will allow you that same kind of interaction you have on a workbook now into the system that will allow you to pick short off of the route. I also didn't mention, so I apologize, when I was talking about routing, I should have noted you can edit in here and change routes and change stops straight from here. So if I wanted to move this to a different route, move this to a different stop, obviously I would do that before I finalize routing. I can do all of that in this worksheet. Just type over it and select from the drop down. So very easy. Then I just refresh my page. It goes to the other route. So super easy, not nearly as difficult as transferring from truck to truck on Docs Onload. Once I pick these short, I printed my pick tickets, I have everything like I want it, then I'm going to really just hit my one button. When I hit this button, what it's going to do is it's going to consolidate. So again, we've defined what should get consolidated together. Whatever is in that filter group of how that should get or put together. So you can see here I have several customers that have several different orders. Some of these are going to consolidate together and some of them aren't because some of them might be on different invoice breaks into that. So it'll consolidate, post the shipments, which is a way that Business Central natively uses to consolidate 2 invoices. Then it will create what the invoice should be. then it will post the invoice and then print the posted invoice. In Business Central, the official invoice is the posted one. So that's what it will do when I hit this button. Now, before I do that, and I'm going to hit the button, by the way, we did, your next question was, well, how long does that take, right? So we staged in our sandbox over 700 orders that consolidate to 462 orders with over 2,375 lines spread over 25 routes and 15 stops. Now, why did we do that number? Because we looked at all of our distributors, those that do the smaller distributors that maybe run this for their whole warehouse at the end of night. Our larger distributors who, all of them are either on a WMS or going to a WMS for picking, and they're going to do batch. So, what's the largest number of, trucks that you would do at one time? And that's where we came up with that number and those number of, line items. To do that whole thing, so that would be like a whole night's worth for smaller distributors, and it would be a large batch for a larger distributor. It took 1 hour and 6 minutes to do the whole thing. So it really is not that long. That's consolidating, printing, and posting. When I hit this button here, which we're going to do, it'll just take 2 to 3 minutes. But before I do that, because I only have one route selected, before I do that, I do want to talk about printer setup for a minute. In my printer setup, we're using, this is a third party, so there is a small charge for this. It is cheaper than Microsoft's Universal Print. So I know we've talked about printing with most people as you think about going to a web-based platform. How do we do printers? You know, how do we get that going? This one is super great. So like we would have done in Forms Printer, where we mapped a form to a specific printer, and that's how it knew where it was going. This is similar, but it's way easier to manage than the Forms Printer one. So in this printer setup, you literally name what is the form, and this is the posted invoice number, and what is the printer that that we want it to go to. I had this selected. John set this up the weekend I was testing my load. I ended up with, 500 a ream of paper into my thing. I was testing it from home, but it doesn't matter. All of those came out on the printer just fine. Again, depending what you have set here, is what's going to drive that. If you don't have something set, like that, my unposted form, is not set here. So if I'm printing and not posting, it will, just create, the first page to a PDF. So we always want to make sure that we have something printed here. You, of course, can print it from, the sales invoice list as well. So that's what it will do. And that's how we determine what is the printer that everything's going to. That's super easy to change. So if for some reason I feel very confident we can train somebody on that in the warehouse. So if by chance something happened to a printer and you need to print it to a different printer, again, as long as that printer is discoverable on your network, it will be fine to be able to see that. So I'm going to hit this button and talk about a few more things as we watch it. It's going to go pretty quick here. Because the last minute or so is where it creates these invoices, and we'll see something pop up. But again, I haven't really mapped my printer appropriately, so we'll see that. So in here, the steps again, that one button is doing is it's taking that order. It's posting the shipments, which is what BC uses to say that what it has fulfilled. It's then taking those shipments, consolidating them together based on our consolidation criteria. It's creating those invoices, and then it is posting the invoices and then going to print them out. If I chose not to post, it would do all of that. It'd print the we call it the pre-forma invoice. We've added some code so that number is exactly the same as your posted invoice, just in case that process. but our pick short is going to go to the sales order. So there really isn't a reason for you not to do all of these steps at the same time, but there might be an exception in your organization, something you want to evaluate, or maybe a certain time of the year where it's like, we got to do this early, but I don't want these to be posted for some reason. That can be a part of here. Now, other things that will come in future webinars to show you, back orders, of course, are picked up and released and created into before this process, so they'll be showing with these sales orders. Back orders in BC are just unshipped orders with a different category, so it's not like a whole different document like in GP. Bill and holds have a little bit different flavor in Business Central in our solution that we've done with 365 Wine Trade. So we've modified that a little bit. I'm finalizing testing on that process, so you'll see a webinar on that in about another month. We'll get to see that process as well. So now it's all gone out of this process, and everything has went to my printer for all the invoices that I did. And you can see now this window is blank, which is nice. So I know I completed this route. So if someone got interrupted and was like, which routes did I do? If you look on here, it no longer will show once I refresh my window. Now I can see what I've done. Again, I chose to post those. So of course I can go to my posted sales invoice and I can see all of my posted sales. I do have my route. So again, let's say something happened. The printer went down, not a big deal. You go here, filter to your route. So I'm just going to say filter to this value. If I had, obviously I would also filter to the date, which is over. I just haven't moved it here. So my date of 1/9. I could filter to that as well. I can select all of these into this window and I can choose to print from here as well. So reprinting, not a problem. You have that ability right here as well. Now from here we can see, again, if I didn't post these, you could see that in the window as well. I can see my invoice number. I can see what order it came from. If it came from multiple orders that combined, you can see the order numbers left out there. But you can see lots of great information into that process. So really smooth. The goal is for us, customer service has a lot of great information to see how routes are building or how to look, or anybody in your organization can do that through the sales order list. But you're seeing a nice, clean representation of just what routers and warehouse workers really never leave this window. And really, they can hit 2 buttons outside of printing pick tickets. Again, if you're a manual print pick ticket person, you can do it through here. If you're you can see my Route 17 is blank now. If you're not, really everything's triggered for you in your WMS through this process. So you really do just have the couple buttons. So hopefully you have enjoyed this process of kind of getting to see it. I'm going to stop my one recording, but we're going to open this up for questions and answers or your feedback. We'd love to hear what you think about this new window. And feel free to email me if you have any questions. If you liked what you saw here today and want more information on next steps or to see more about our wine and spirits solution on Business Central, please email us at info@infusion.com, give us a call with the number on the screen, or visit our website, infusion.com. Check out the Wine and Spirits resource page where you can see other features that we've released for preview as well. Thanks.